Of course, he's best known for The Conspirators' Hierarchy, the Committee of 300, now in its 4th edition, doctor of constitutional law, reportedly worked with, well, you know what, Doc, it's always good to have you because you've done so much. How would you describe yourself best in your bio in this short segment we've got you with us for?
How would I describe myself?
Yes.
Just a very ordinary fellow trying to get information out to the people who need it very badly.
Well, you've put out invaluable info, and we don't have a lot of time with you today because I don't want to twist your arm into a full hour with you being under the weather. But so much is happening. I wanted to get you back on about the globalist hierarchy. But the limited time we have today, they're openly saying they want to attack Iran. They want to board their ships with a blockade, which is an act of war. Looks like that's going to the front burner. I see this oil spill as a diversion while they get their internet censorship bills passed, their carbon tax passed. What's your take on the oil spill?
I think that it's a contrived situation myself. I've not voiced that opinion before, but I believe that is the case. In other words, it's something like akin to Pearl Harbor, which was a contrived situation, you know. Roosevelt told Stimson and Knox, and he said, we somehow got to get the Japanese into the position where they will fire the first shots. I think what this is what about. It's much the same kind of thing.
Absolutely. And what brought you to that conclusion? Because that's the only conclusion I have. Day one, my gut told me that, but now we know they ordered the people on the rig to dump seawater in instead of cement. For a month, the rig operator said this will explode, so they gave orders. They knew it would lead to it. Turns out Goldman Sachs really owned much of BP. Its chairman was also the chairman of BP. Goldman Sachs dumped 44% of its stock the week before. The BP CEO dumped 30+% of his stock the week before. Now we learned Halliburton bought an oil cleaning company in the Gulf the week before. We know they're the head funders of the carbon tax global neo-surf system. So, I mean, there's a lot of other evidence. Now they've been blocking for 50+ days. The governors and others trying to clean up the oil themselves. And Obama says the carbon tax is the answer.
I don't think that's the answer at all. I think that what they've got to do is put 600 or 700 boats out there to clean the mess up as quickly as they can. That's what the solution is.
Absolutely, but Doctor, in the time we have, because I'm ranting here, I mean, what brought you to the conclusion that it's a contrived, staged event?
I've seen so many of these things in the past, in history itself, like, and to go back to, you know, to the Second World War. They got this supposedly insane Dutchman to fire some shots. And they said, oh, this was something done by one of the nations, and this cause for war. So there's so many things in history that have been similar to this. And Pearl Harbor sending the Japanese, cutting off their supplies of raw materials that's vital for their production and their continued well-being, a unilateral action by Roosevelt, with not even consulting the Japanese, and then, of course, you know, when the Japanese came to see him in Washington, Marshall was out riding in Central Park and they couldn't get to anybody. Of course, I have no brief for the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. It's inexcusable. But nevertheless, this is the kind of thing that happens. These contrived situations are made from time to time when it suits the purpose. And we all know that the Committee of 300 are the people pulling the strings, mainly, from every situation, from every angle.
That's right, and if they have to sacrifice the name of BP, formerly Anglo-American Oil, they'll just change the name again, and BP has always been at the heart of pushing the global carbon tax to fund the world government, and then now notice it was a BP rig that this happened with.
I don't know if you remember that what happened in the time in Iran when they had the big blow-up there and things went completely wrong. And that was called the American Oil, or Aramco, and it was called a whole lot of other names. It was only after that disaster there that they changed the name to British Petroleum.
That's right.
BP.
That's
BP.
right.
So it's very easy to change names.
Absolutely. That's what DynCorp did after they got caught involved in sex slave trafficking. Well, Doc, in the limited time we have here, and again, we're going to nail you down for next week, so much is happening in the world. What's your concern dealing with Iran? Do you see frightening movements towards war with Iran?
I see that, in my opinion, for what it's worth, war in the Middle East is almost imminent. I see this as where it's heading. All factors point to it.
Wow, absolutely. We're on the same page on that front, unfortunately.
You see how they're driving Iran into a corner. They're doing everything they can to. And Russia has disgraced itself by reneging on their contract, which they've had since 2003, to supply the S-300 anti-aircraft missile system. It's probably the best. It is not probably, but certainly the best in the world that could shoot down aircraft from 75 miles away and not miss, because each missile has its own guided system which cannot be jammed. Once fired, it's bound to hit its target. And so they stopped supplying that to make the way easy for them to attack Iran. That's next on the cards, which I think will lead to a major conflagration in the Middle East. I think that Putin has completely disgraced himself and Russia in this move. So Lord knows what they're up to.
Russia had been claiming that they were going to not go along with an attack on Iran, but they are now, it looks like, starting to renege on that. Also, as you mentioned, Venezuela. What pressure do you think was brought to bear on Russia?
By the United States?
Yes.
Oh, a great deal. They've sent several envoys over there to talk with Medvedev, who, by the way, is not exactly the brightest of people, but Putin had to step down because of their constitution. And Medvedev, of course, does whatever Putin tells him in the background. So I think they went to put a lot of pressure on Russia, a tremendous amount of pressure on Russia, to join in the game. China's gone along very, very reluctantly, but of course, and I think that they'll find Iran a very, very hard nut to crack. They have their militia called the Pasdarans, of about 1 million men, very well trained. They have their regular army, which is an enormous size. And you know, Iran itself was 10 times the size of Iraq. Since we found such a terrible job on our hands trying to subdue Iraq, how on earth are we going to do the same thing to Iran? I think it's a physical impossibility. I think it's beyond the capabilities of the United States military powers as it stands now.
Well, Doctor, in closing, and we'll talk more about it next week, you write time and time again as a theme in your many books about the intentional destruction of the United States by design. We've been the empire for the Anglo-American Committee of 300. We've been the funding mechanism. But as we get towards the end and the formation of world government, clearly they want to pin all their crimes on us. Why do they want to destroy the goose that laid their golden eggs of tyranny and empire? And where do you see all of this basically winding up? What's their end-game strategy?
The end game, as I said before, the end game is to usher in a new world order inside of one world government, which will be the Committee of 300. And the way to do this is, first of all, destroy the most powerful nation in the world, the United States of America, which is a temporary expedient, and they feel that they can, once this is up and running, they can revive the patient by applying all the necessary techniques. It's like a person who gets knocked temporarily unconscious, you know, give them oxygen and all kinds of stuff, and in a very short while they recover. So they've got such faith in the United States, and rightly so. It's a tremendous economic power, and its powers of recovery have been proved many, many times, even after the huge disaster of Woodrow Wilson in World War I. And I'm sure that they know as well as I do that the United States can very quickly be resuscitated once the objective has been achieved.
Amazing.
I know some of your listeners may think I'm off the wall, but the surprising thing is, and I don't like to toot my own horn, but I've made about 500 predictions in my lifetime, and almost all of them have come to pass. And
no,
I'm not some kind of...
No, I know you have on record, but I mean, what is their final plan then for the United States?
Final plan will be the United States be the premium, the number one country inside their showcase country inside the New World Order, one world government. That's their plan. They can't dispense with the United States altogether. It's too important an organization from an economic point alone. So it has to remain viable. And, of course, once this organization is in place, and it's not a new thing, you know, they've been trying this since the days of King George III. at that time, he was lining up all the European powers to join in the scheme he had, which he also called a New World Order.
Well, sure, but the Republic as we know, the free market, private property system that we've known, that is to be dismantled.
Oh, yes, that'll go. That definitely will go. Yes, everything will become, like the social, it's actually the clear goal is to socialize the United States. You can see it in every move that the president is making, or every step he's taking. I mean, it's towards socialism in America. America will be socialized. I don't think there's the slightest doubt. And Roosevelt strove mightily to bring that about. He didn't quite succeed, but he built a very good bridge towards socialism. And I think that Obama is continuing to build that bridge.